Check, check, check. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to see you today. My name is Dustin Cormier, and welcome to How to Rock Astrology. Today is going to be my first lesson in this sort of series I'm going to cook up, talking about Western versus Vedic, and what are the differences, what does Vedic have to offer Western astrologers, is kind of what I'm getting at here. I'm a Canadian. I kind of start off my astrology training and learning in the Western camp through books like Isabel Hickey, Carl Jungian sort of psychology, and these sorts of things. I got into the Vedic just by chance, and I'm into yoga, and I'm very into like the Indian sort of philosophy anyway, so I was bound to get to the Vedic astrology eventually. It seems like a big gap, but it's worth it when you get into it. There's so much that the Vedic offers the Western experience. More than I'd say than the Western can offer the Vedic, to be honest with you. But I digress. I'm here today to talk about this through the guise of Jupiter and the houses. So also take this as a lesson on Jupiter. So I'm going into my third year of Ryan Kirksack's astrology apprenticeship. This is a picture of Ryan right here. Ryan Kirksack is my teacher. His teacher was Ernst Wilhelm, and well, he's his own student. But Ernst has really provided a backbone for a lot of the educational paradigms that Ryan is working through. If you want to know more about Ryan, check out ashevilleVedicAstrology.wordpress.com. In fact, today I'm doing an essay from that I did for Ryan's course, and I'm taking this essay essentially from it's my own written essay, and you can see this essay on Ryan's site. If you just go all the way down, I did this Jim Morrison one. I'm going to put that video up soon. The astrology of Jupiter in each house. That is my essay that Ryan has put up here. Feel free to check it out if you like. So that's the guts of what I'm talking about today. This video, the essay was written with the BHAVAS in mind, the houses. So this is kind of talking about BHAVAS and BHAVESHAs, houses and house lords, I should say, for the Western people. I'm going to really try to ground this in the Western language. Now, basically what do I mean by house lords? You Western folks might be wondering that. Well, I'm going to show you a little peek at my own chart for y'all Westerners. This is my chart, and some people are weird about showing their charts online. I like to be kind of cheeky about it. Different people have different perspectives. I don't feel like I have anything to hide. It's just what it is, I like to be cheeky about it. Oh, you want to see it? You want me to whip it out? I'm a Scorpio. Don't mind my Sagittarius moon. So, we can see here that I'm a Leo rising. Now, something that I did not get in my Western astrology experience is we're going to have to talk about, basically, the house lords, as well as the cusps a little bit. I'm going to kind of mark it out right now. Essentially, each house has a ruler, represented by the sign ruler, the sign that the house falls on. For example, in a Leo rising chart like mine, as we can see here, I'm a Leo. Let me just see if you guys can see, yeah. Leo is the first house. Now, that means that the sun is the first lord. This sun down here at the bottom, all wrapped up with Mars and Pluto, that is the first lord, which means that it carries the karma, the qualities, and tones of the first house. My first house cusp opens itself through the planet that rules the sign that the cusp falls on. So for me, the sun carries first house qualities, rising sign qualities. And my rising sign, as you can tell, I'm a Leo, but it comes through very deeply through Scorpio tones. So it's almost like I'm a Scorpio rising in a certain way, sort of. So that might seem obvious to most people, even in the Western astrology experience. The rising sign Lord is very important, as it's the open door for the vitality and the life path of the soul. Now, you Westerners might not know that the same can be said for the second house cusp. We would say Virgo in the chart of a Leo. Virgo is the second house, usually, and it carries the qualities, the ruler of Virgo, which is Mercury, carries the qualities and tones of the second house. So my second house is deeply, it's necessary for me to think of all things second house wise. It's necessary for me to consider where Mercury is, because Mercury is the carrier of my second house karma. Same can be said for the third house. Now, this is a point that I have to at least quantify a little bit right here. First thing about the Vedic is that in a way, there's like an equal house system, and then there's what we call the BHAVAS. The BHAVAS are the cusps. I wanted to show my chart here just to tell you guys what's kind of going on. Westerners would know that this third house cusp falls in Virgo. So my third house energy is still being carried by Mercury as well, just like my second house energy. And all of us Westerners can know that. Now, not to confuse, but we have to speak about it. In the Vedic experience, I would not say really that my third house lord is Mercury. No matter what, for a Leo, Libra is the third sign away from Leo. So Libra and Venus will always be the Bhavesha of the third Bhavesha, the third house lord. In Vedic, we do consider the house cusps. They are important, but they're like treated like the rising sign. They're treated as energy points. If a planet falls there, it's energized by the energy of the house. Like you can see here, my third house energy is, interestingly, is hitting Venus. So that third house cusp, even though it's still in Virgo, which is like, that to me kind of says like my third house cusp is wrapped up in my second house as a Leo. There being a planet there, that planet is energized also by that third cusp vibe. I'm really trying to be diligent about explaining this because it's a real gap for most people trying to get into the Vedic experience. I have many astrologer friends who I talk about, and I always just say, like Capricorn is always the sixth house for a Leo. But they would say, but sometimes the sixth house doesn't fall in Capricorn for a Leo. The sixth house cusp could be in like Aquarius or whatever. But for me, for us Vedic people, Capricorn is the sixth sign from Leo. And so Capricorn will hold the energy of the sixth house no matter what. And Saturn will always be the sixth house lord as well. Again, it's a bit of both, you know. If I had my 7th cusp, well, that wouldn't make sense. If I had my 5th house falling in Capricorn, I would still call Sagittarius the 5th house for a Leo. It's the trine. But Capricorn would have a bit of my 5th house energy if the 5th cusp fell in Capricorn. So that was, that's basically a whole lot going on there. I'm probably going to make a video just specifically on this, but I wanted to speak to it before we go on. Yes, I digress. We can do this. We can talk more about this whole cusp thing in another video, but I just explained it pretty well. So, this video lesson is about Jupiter in the houses. I'm 10 minutes in and I'm just getting to the content of the conversation. But sometimes you gotta have these little intros. I'm basically going to be reading from a little script that I have here. You'll notice that I keep looking at my computer down here. It's because I have a script, and that's the essay, my essay, that you can read on Ryan's channel. Now, part of the reason why I wanted to talk about, even make this video, is to talk about the contradictions that can happen in astrology, where people are a bit too dogmatic about certain figures. You might learn something in your coming to the full knowledge of astrology, and you might just take it for granted that it's always this thing. It's like if Jupiter is in the 1st house, it is always a good thing. It's got strong bala in the 1st house. Jupiter's a great benefic. To have it in your rising sign it's pretty much a good thing no matter what. It is true. But that doesn't mean that it won't have annoying qualities. An astrologer might look at Jupiter in the 1st house and say, oh my God, you've got an amazing Jupiter. It's not going to have any issues for you at all. You can't think that way. Astrology is so much more complex than most novice astrologers think. So, let's talk a bit about Jupiter. Jupiter's placement in the natal chart provides the indicated area of life that Jupiter's in with the positive attributes which it's known for. Jupiter's called the Great Benefic in Vedic astrology. Benefic meaning good, beneficial, same root. But whether or not the optimistic qualities of Jupiter will be put to proper use is a different matter, because any planet's function in the chart entails not only its natural attributes, but also its role as a house lord in a certain state, in a certain dignity, with other quantifying factors. The planet is not just what it is. You don't just put a planet in a sign in a house and say, oh, well, it's got these qualities. There's actually better and worse places for Jupiter to be. Ryan often talks about, in his courses, he talks about a person who has a certain way, a certain job that they're used to doing, being in their favorite field. Let's say an artist. If you put an artist who's an artistic person in a room full of art and paints, and it's a quiet little enclosed space with the sun coming in, and they're an artist, they're an artistic person. That's like Jupiter going into like Cancer, where Jupiter's exalted. Then you have this artistic person who's being given the comfort and the freedom and the joyous place to use Jupiter's qualities at its best. Now take Jupiter and put it in Capricorn, where Jupiter is debilitated. Now you're taking this artistic person and you're putting them in an office with bureau walls, those like little office walls. You enclose them in an enclosed space. You don't give them the freedom to breathe, the freedom to express themselves. This Jupiter it'll do good in Capricornian things because it's still Jupiter, it's still a benefic. But it won't use Jupiter at its best capacity. In fact, it might even, that artistic vibe, that buoyant, optimistic vibe, it doesn't suit Capricorn and the business world and the materialism of the business world quite as well. It might be too optimistic, too joyous about digging its nose into its own work. Jupiter is considered, Jupiter is considered the most auspicious graha. Graha means planet. Whenever you hear me say graha, it means planet. Just remember that in case I don't reiterate that. Jupiter is considered the most auspicious planet in multiple astrology traditions because it represents the inner path to spontaneous happiness and expression in one's role as a soul and an ego. It kind of combines both. That's why Sagittarius is the 9th sign, and it very much represents the Jupiter vibe. So does Pisces, actually. The mysticism of Pisces. Pisces is good at expressing itself while still doing whatever its little things that it does. Sagittarius is this bombastic character, this just sort of centaur body, but with a man trying to learn how to use the animal body. It's this joyous expression of the animal nature being fitted to a human cerebral role. It's the philosopher. It's the one who's combining the wild animal with the intelligence of the human. Anywhere where Jupiter is, whenever it gets activated by transits and dashas. Dasha is a Vedic term that I'm probably going to make a video about. It's like sort of like a transit. It's like a period where a planet is amplified. So wherever Jupiter is activated, wherever it is in the chart, it tends to impart big picture realizations about who the person is at their most natural. Parts of the self, we transform all the time as humans. We go through one experience, we shave off neuroprograms of who we've been, we gain new neuroprograms, and we shed our skin every 10 years. Every cell in the body has completely come through. We're constantly transforming and mutating. But there are parts of us, like you could look at a 50-year-old man who has changed so much through their life, but certain things will remain there, for better or worse. Some spots on a leopard you can't change. A leopard can't change his spots, kind of thing, right? And this is a good thing. There are parts of ourselves that are so intrinsic to our soul, to who we are, to who we could be, to the way our unconscious genetic material relates with the world around us, that we don't want to change. That's just there for a good reason. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say in India. That's an old one that comes from way long ago. It was, when I was reading the Bhagavad Gita and commentaries on it, I heard that. It's like when you're washing a baby, you want to wipe the dirt off of it, and then you want to throw away the bath water, right? It's like you want to change it's like changing a person. It's transforming a person. But you don't want to throw the baby away. You don't want to throw the good parts of the character that have been building up. You don't want to completely throw it all away, right? Jupiter gives us the capacity to be... Sorry, my friends are downstairs being happy with the dog. Jupiter gives you the capacity to see what you are, what you want to be, and to let the best qualities of what you are come through. Wherever it is, whenever it's activated, that area is going to help you to know what you should cultivate in yourself, which will be useful, productive, even wealthy and successful in your life. Jupiter expands our sense of self, for better or worse, through a certain set of experiences indicated by its sign and house position, aspects, etc. Now, first thing we're going to talk about in this video is Jupiter in what's called the Lagna. I'm just checking this out, just seeing if my video's all good. The Lagna is the ascendant. It's the rising sign. The Lagna, the ascendant, is the most important bhava, the most important house in any chart. The ascendant is both a trinal house. What I mean by a trinal house is that the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th are in like a trine. If you look at any chart, you can see this quite naturally. We could see Leo is in trine with Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is in trine with Aries. These three make up the trine of the soul. And triangles are very, you'll hear that triangles are very strong architecturally. Trinary things tend to have very good strength to them. That's why bees make their hives out of like hexagons, because hexagons are made up of triangles in a certain way. It's kind of interesting, right? And in a circle, which is 360 degrees, we can divide a circle by 3 and we'll get 120 degrees. And that's where the trines are. So, the trines are very important to the chart. And the ascendant is one of these trines. But the ascendant is also what's called in Vedic, it's an angular house as well. We can see that there's 4 angles: Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus. It's the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. Those are the angular houses. And it's the angular houses that draw activity to us. Those houses always have deep undercurrents of karma, of faded activity in our lives as they play out. So, the first house is a trine house, and it's a cardinal house, an angular house. So not only is it intrinsic to the soul, it gives us great joy. Just the trine houses all are intrinsic to the soul. The trine houses resonate with Jupiter, with this self-expression theme. And in fact, the 5th and 9th house have Jupiter as karakas. We're going to talk about what karakas are soon. So for the first house to be both an angular activity drawer as well as a trine, it's almost like a natural yoga karaka, as we would say it in Vedic. It brings activity, but it brings lucky activity that relates to how the nature of the self is. So, Jupiter is a trine house as well as an angular house. It represents the ascendant, the first house. It represents the path in life which the physical cosmos tends to unfold for the person. Now we're imagining Jupiter being in the first house here, right? Jupiter actually is very strong in the first house no matter what. And it's just a great thing to have Jupiter on the ascendant. Since Jupiter's job is, it grants through karma, through fate, wherever Jupiter is, it gives us the opportunity and the inclination to try things out. So, since Jupiter makes us want to try, it gives us a faithful optimism. The universe guides us to just be whatever we are, wherever Jupiter is. So if you have Jupiter in the first house, that means the first house and everything that relates to the first house is going to be drawn out joyously, buoyantly through the Jupiter qualities. And this would be through the first house when you have Jupiter here. It suggests someone who is willing to try out the self. what can I be? What can I be? You know, it's like that, it's a Donovan song, and it goes, Season of the Witch. When I look in my window, what do you think I see? I look in my window, so many different people to be. And we can be so many different things. The Jupiter in the first house person is just going to be like, I could be whatever I want. So I'm going to try them all, try them on, see what it feels like, see what feels good. Jupiter in the first house person tests the limits of the body and the personality from a very early age. Jupiter in the first manifests a loss of inhibition where self-expression and identity, first house themes, are concerned. So this is all good, right? But just because it's like, and it's mostly good, but we have to consider that the fashion by which any planet behaves is colored by its function as a house lord in a certain state. Western astrologers just lose this house lord factor, so they don't think, they just look at Jupiter and it's like, well, Jupiter's got to be somewhere. Oh, it's in your first house, so it's got first house qualities. Your rising sign has Jupiter qualities. Both of those are there and important. Westerners don't think about the fact that Jupiter means something specific to a Leo rising. Jupiter means something specific to a Libra rising. It's a certain relationship, a geometrical relationship with the rising sign. So I'm going to show you an example of a chart, and we're going to talk a bit about this. Jupiter is strong in the first house no matter what, because like I said, it gains dig bala strength in the first house. The first house is kind of like a secondary exaltation point for Jupiter. In the same way that Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, it's also exalted in the first house. To have Jupiter in the first house for a Cancer rising in a chart that I'm going to show you, I actually know a person with this, and it's an incredible quality to have. These people attract people by their natural spirituality and self-realization vibes. Jupiter does well the closer it is to the first house, because Jupiter's role is to unveil the happy, laughing infant baby inside the soul. It can't do that when it's closer to the seventh house, because then it's focused on other people, right? It's not saying, I'm going to try out what I am and digest what I am and let it come through. Jupiter in the seventh says, I feel really good when others are looking at me, telling me that I'm good for doing this. Jupiter brings opportunities for the person to feel joyous through the eyes of other people, which is still joy. It's still Jupiter. Someone with Jupiter in the seventh can't just be like, oh, that's Jupiter sucks for me. You know, it's still Jupiter, and you got to draw it out somewhere. It's just that's, you know, the artist is not in his, they're not doing their art for art's sake at that point. They're doing their art for everyone else's sake. Still Jupiter, they're still doing it, but it's not as strong. It's not, the archetype is not sitting in its own archetype, shall we say. But still, even though Jupiter in the first, as a general rule, is good, there are layers to how Jupiter acts in any placement, relating not just to the house it's in, but also the houses it rules, as well as the sign that it's in. You Western astrologers were hoping it would be more black and white than that, I'm sure. You know, there's all these complexities that people who are used to the Western astrology tradition just go, all this extra junk, you know, just tell me where my Jupiter is so I can feel good about it. But I guess any astrologer in any tradition can blind sight themselves if they don't open up to all the different things. I'm sure that there are Vedic astrologers. Again, I always say, Western does have things to offer to the Vedic. You know, our thing here is that we're trying to expand our awareness of our own astrological root through the combination of different religious and theosophical systems. Now, what's this house lord thing all about? Let's imagine a chart with Libra as the rising sign. Okay? Here we have Jupiter in the first, as we can see. You guys can see this, yes? Yes. Jupiter's in the first house. It's right on the ascendant cusp. Now, I should like to... This is an important note that I have to make here. Basically, this is more of this Vedic versus Western consciousness. Pisces is anciently considered to be ruled by Jupiter. A lot of Western traditions do acknowledge this, and they say Jupiter is the sort of like either the primary or secondary ruler, whereas Neptune is usually considered the primary ruler of Pisces. I go by the Vedic thing. Personally, my opinion is that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are completely different planets. They're just a whole other thing. And they just go completely by their own vibe, and they aren't chained. Uranus is not chained to Aquarius. Neptune is not chained to Pisces. Pluto is not chained to Scorpio. That's my personal opinion. But I digress. That's something that's fun to debate about. Now, excuse me. This means, for us Vedic people, Jupiter is the primary ruler, of Pisces. Now, when we look at a chart, like this Libra chart, again, we have to consider what houses does Jupiter rule in order to really get a sense of what Jupiter is doing in the chart of a Libra, right? Jupiter is an astral tone. Let's call it green. Actually, it's more correct to call it orange. Everybody needs orange in their chakra sphere as a color, as an astral tone. But what is orange if your color is green? What is orange really? It's all kind of subjective. It depends on the color lens that you're looking through. For a Libra who's like green, heart chakra, Jupiter is going to mean something tough and different. The orange chakra is tough to deal with for the heart chakra centered person, shall we say. That being Jupiter. If we were to take it from chakra knowledge, we could say that the heart chakra tries to open for everybody and to use the animal instincts and love in a constructive way, which is more than the possessive, sexual, obsessive character of the orange chakra. Jupiter is sort of about this enjoyment of the pleasures of the senses, of the self, for the sake of the self coming through in its most blissful way. So this is why the orange chakra can be tough looking through the eye of the heart chakra. This all goes to say that Jupiter is a kind of a tough planet for Libra rising. It's pretty inauspicious, actually. For a Libra rising who is trying to be in the deal with relationships, deal with businesses and business contracts for the sake of beauty at its most natural, to have Jupiter in the first house for a Libra is a good thing because Jupiter is where it wants to be, but it's still a bit tricky. Jupiter is the third and sixth lord for Libra, okay? So what does that mean exactly? Well, when we look in this chart, we can see the third cusp falls in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is the third sign from Libra. So the third house has aggressive tones. Mars is a karaka for the third house, a symbol, a signifier. Pisces is the other ruler of Jupiter. So that means that Jupiter, well, we can see here that the 6th house cusp is falling in Pisces. Pisces is the 6th house from Libra. Pisces is sort of like the 12th from the 7th. It's sort of like necessary habitual things we've got to do in order to deal with our relationships. It's kind of what our 7th cusp stands on. So Jupiter has the annoying character of the 3rd house and the 6th house for a Libra rising. This means that Jupiter is kind of a necessary cleanup energy. The buoyant energy of Jupiter for a Libra is typically used as this sort of keeping myself alive sort of like energy, this annoying. It's also kind of lusty with the 3rd house vibe there. It's overstimulating in a way. So this type of Jupiter person could have trouble with like weight, because the 3rd house, they would have trouble harnessing their mind, although Jupiter being well placed here could help them to learn it. It's almost like, because their mind is so stimulating and lusty, that it forces them to deal with it. And for a person like this, early in their youth, they might be just hard to pin down. They're just like a buoyant child who's just like even aggressive. This could be an aggressive personality because of the 3rd house and the 6th house vibe. So this Jupiter for a Libra rising carries the aggressive tone of the 3rd house and also the nitpicky Virgoan criticizing tones of the 6th house. Jupiter being in the 1st house of identity, the 1st house is the mask which we show to the world. So a Libra rising with Jupiter in the 1st house, since Jupiter carries the 3rd and 6th house vibes, the universe might bring them to the realization, in a generally painless and organic way in their experience, that this 6th house vibe of being nitpicky, of being critical, of stimulating their minds constantly through the 3rd house vibe, Jupiter will show them they're going to try for it. They're going to go in their experience and they're going to think, I'm allowed to be this nitpicky person. I'm allowed to be critical. I'm allowed to criticize my friends. And I'm doing it for good reasons. It's a part of who I am. It doesn't always feel good to me. It doesn't always feel good to others. Me being critical and telling people all these little details about like what they should do with their lives. But the Libra does it out of the love for the sake of others. Libra wants to be useful to their friends. And Jupiter here is saying, I feel like I need to be critical to my friends. I need to tell them how I really feel. I want to be that friend who tells them that they've got spinach in their teeth. You know, real friends will tell you when you've got something like that, right? Libra wants to be that friend, or that they've got a spot on their face or something like that, you know? And sometimes it's heavy and annoying, like, oh, yeah, thanks, Libra. Okay, I get it. You know, you want to tell me about the pimples on my face too? God, right? Because Jupiter is here, Jupiter is coming through the personality. And it's good. It's giving the person an opportunity to try who they are. And it's this nitpicky quality that they're allowing themselves to have, because Jupiter rules the 6th and the 3rd. Do you see the context that's important here? There's so much blending going on in this one figure of having Jupiter in the 1st house. Now, this isn't bad so long as this dynamic finds its balance, Libra, in one's relationships to others and oneself. And you don't want this nitpicky, stimulating thing to grow in a cumbersome way as if it were an unpruned hedge in the persona. Generally, it's up to the dignity and status of Jupiter to define whether its role, here in this case as the malefic 3rd and 6th lord to the rising sign, it's up to its dignity and its placement and its angles and its aspects to find whether it will work out constructively in the personality. If Jupiter, this person will learn to use this quality well, although it's still going to be a bane for them. Jupiter is not an auspicious planet for Libra. To have an inauspicious planet on your rising sign is a tough thing to have to deal with. It might make this person too bold, too obnoxious and callous in their free expression of themselves. You know, it's like they can be too critical and people will say, God, I hate that you do that. And they will say, it's just who I am. Sorry. Kinda. So for this person, since Jupiter rules the 6th and 3rd in the 1st house, Venus is also an enemy to Jupiter. Is it that? Let me think. Jupiter is an enemy to nobody. But, yeah, Jupiter is an enemy to nobody. But Venus is an enemy to Jupiter. Sometimes that's how the planets work. In Vedic astrology, there's a great breakdown. I should do a video on that as well, of the friends, of the planets being friends and enemies to each other in certain ways. So, Jupiter's role as the 6th and 3rd lord in this 1st house might cause them to lack discretion in their territorial energy, to be too fearless about expressing and integrating the sporty, obnoxious tones as a cornerstone of the personality. They might be a bit too optimistic about it. Oh, who cares? It's just who I am. It's still Jupiter, still benefic, still positive in a lot of ways. Because at least they are learning to express themselves and finding parts of their personality that are necessary. But others might find it a bit much. Others might perceive that this Libra is a bit bossy. And their excuse will be that I'm doing it for you. I care. You're lucky that I care so much about you. You're lucky that I think so much about what you're doing. Thank me for it, for God's sake, you know? Now, I guess this is the Vedic chart for everything that we just talked about for anybody who's interested. We can see that this little line is the Lagna, the ascendant, and it's in Libra. As you can see, these squares are signs. And Jupiter is in Libra here. It's the same chart. It's nice to see that, like, for the southern style of chart like this, it never changes. Aries is always this square. Taurus is always this square. But the rising sign, the lines get moved around. It's really useful because you'll always know where Libra is. And when you see Jupiter is in Libra, you can already see, no matter what, the angles to it. You can look right at Aquarius and you'll know. Moon is there and it's going to be trine Jupiter, etc. Now, can you guys, I hope to God you guys can see. Oh, yes, sweet. You guys can see what I'm looking at. Good. Okay. Now, this next chart is a friend of mine. And this is going to show that the situation is not necessarily the same for a Cancer ascendant, for whom Sagittarius even owns the 6th house, right? We could see in this chart, Cancer is the ascendant, The 6th cusp falls into Sagittarius. The 9th cusp falls in Pisces. This is the natural way for a Cancer anyway. Sagittarius is the 6th from Cancer. Pisces is the 9th from Cancer. Now, there's a lot to say here. The first thing that I would say is that the 9th house is the most auspicious house for any sign, for any rising sign. The 9th house is the most auspicious. It's the most positive, no matter what. The 9th house will guide you wherever it is. The 9th Lord, wherever you put it, will guide you to be the best person that you can be. It's got these Jupiter tones of being who you are, coming through with who you are. My friends are listening to some yoga stuff. Excuse that noise. So, for a Cancer rising, Jupiter is the 6th Lord as well as the 9th Lord. Now, the 6th Lord is malefic. It's a negative house Lord. The 6th always has these negative qualities. But Parashara tells us that Jupiter is a very auspicious planet for Cancer. Parashara is the sage who wrote and configured all these things. Now, just because Parashara says it, I mean, in Vedic, we just take that as gold. But we can see why Parashara would say that Jupiter's a very auspicious planet for Cancer. A huge case in point being that Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So Cancer is the warm artist's home who's doing their art for their own sake and doing it from within. Cancer is that vibe, that warm, homey sense of giving to others in that way, and to oneself even, the nurturing quality. So Jupiter is a great planet for Cancer, and even though it's blended in with the 6th house, it's blended in with the 9th. And the goodness of the 9th house always overrides when the 9th is blended with another house lord, it always overrides the negativity. Even if a planet ruled the 9th and the 3rd is also a bad malefic house lord. That would never happen because the 9th will always overtake the negative qualities of any house it's associated with. So that means that Jupiter as the 9th Lord will always be good wherever you put it for a Cancer rising. Now we can see here, even though for you Westerners, Jupiter is well behind the ascendant, not technically in the 1st house, we still say in the Vedic experience that this would be Jupiter associated with the Lagna, in the same sign as the 1st house, and it's got a 1st house quality and tone. So, the Jupiter in this person being in the 1st house, as we would say, this Jupiter, same thing. It's giving the person the capacity, the desire, the opportunities. The parents are going to encourage this Cancer person to be who they are without apology. Just be who you are, accept your nature for what it is, and this nature coming through the 6th and the 9th is going to actually be in tune with who the person's, what this person's, it's like we said, there's, when we transform through life, we eventually want to keep the good things and eliminate the bad things in our persona. A Jupiter in the 1st house for a Cancer rising will be guided by the universe to learn very quickly what are the parts of your personality that you ought to keep, that relate to your unchanging, blissful Atma, your soul, the person that you have been, the heart that's been trying to pour through lifetime after lifetime. This Jupiter gains these positive capacities. Now, the 6th lordship is still there because Sagittarius rules the 6th house for a Cancer. Now, this Jupiter, the Jupiter in the Cancer ascendant chart, is going to nitpick still. It's going to be nitpicky, but it's in a completely different way. It's not coming from Libra's desire to look good to others. It's not coming from the same mind space. It's coming from like the 6th chakra, being Cancer. It's coming from a deep ennobled sense that me helping others is just going to make me, it's part of my nature for Cancer. It's part of my nurturing. So when if this Cancer person is doting on you, asking you like, how's your, like, you know, like, do you have your lunch packed? What time are you getting off work? Can I come and pick you up? I'm going to include it in my schedule. That's this kind of person, you know? If it's good for the other person, the Cancer rising with Jupiter in the 1st will take it upon itself to help the other person schedule their lives, 6th house vibe, to constantly, routinely support them. And it will help, that will be part of the Cancer's dharma. So this Jupiter, even though it's still got the 6th house quality, you got it, again, showing the context here. Jupiter in the 1st was rather negative for the Libra. But Jupiter in the 1st, because Jupiter rules the 9th and the 6th, and the very positive 9th lord, the trinal lord, it's going to be very good for a Cancer, having Jupiter in the 1st house, especially because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. Now we can see that Jupiter is in a much better place. The artist is in his own sphere. He's in his own zone. He's not thinking about others. He's expressing his or her heart from within the nature of the heart. This is one of the best placements you can have in astrology. Cancer rising, Jupiter close to the 1st house cusp. It's one of the best, honestly, one of the best benefic things you can have. I'm very happy to know the person in my life who has this placement. She is a yogi. She's a Kundalini yogi, and she does so much to help out others. She takes it upon herself to constantly discipline, discern what's good for her, always working on her own schedule. She's good at managing time. All these positive 6th house things are well placed in Cancer, Jupiter being in Cancer in the 1st house. And it also just looks good on her personality. She's a beautiful person. She's attractive, and she's got a beautiful personality. She's very nice, but she's tough when she needs to be. She will help people unclutter their unconscious neurological impulses. You know, she will stick her nose into a situation and say, hey, you're being a little bit mean right now, and you don't need to be. But she'll do it in a way that's kosher. So, all of this goes to show that having Jupiter in the 1st house can't possibly tell you all there is to know about that placement. Right? This is why I'm really making this video, is to show the differences between the context that's needed to really understand what it means to have Jupiter in a house and in a sign. So, folks, now that I do still have more in my essay here, I could talk a little bit more about Jupiter in the houses, in all of the houses. But I believe that my intuition is telling me that this video is an hour long. I think I should keep it as it is. The purpose here was for Westerners to get a glimpse of the context that they're missing out by not considering the Vedic method of interpreting the horoscope. For more, if you are interested, this book right here is by my teacher, Ryan Kirkzak. This book is a great fundamental grounding on all the things that relate to Vedic astrology. It's a really good primer. It's just going to give you all the things that we've talked about today. It's the art and science of Vedic astrology. Check out Ryan's channel for more of this kind of astrology stuff. There's so much to talk about. I can't wait to talk with you guys more. For now, I'm pretty happy with how this video has turned out, talking about Jupiter and the type of context that we need to integrate when we're talking about any planet in any sign in any house. So, I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to subscribe, like, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.